I was hoping to crack on with quite a few jobs on Esther today.
Sorry, Mr. Booth.
And now is when I do it up, this is coming out of here. Didn't work.
Absolute nightmare with Esther. The West London Classic Ford crew are having a bit of a barbecue. These lot are all going to Chelsea Cruise tonight. Matthew's having some issues. Old school Mini over here. This thing was making loads of racket. Mk2 Transit V6 V8 1600E. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today you join me from the cockpit of Maude, my moredoor Mk2 Escort. Now I'm heading over to my other garage where I store Esther, my SD170 powered Mk1 Escort, and I was hoping to crack on with quite a few jobs on Esther today, but I'm still waiting for some bits to arrive through the post from eBay. Also, I've got my boxing class tonight, so that's another reason why I haven't got loads of time around the garage today. I was planning to go boxing tomorrow, but tomorrow I've got a busy day planned with filming and stuff. So yeah, just trying to squeeze everything into my very busy life. But I'm not complaining, I absolutely love it. I definitely thrive more when I'm under pressure. So yeah, it's all good. I was going to be fitting a brand new exhaust manifold gasket to Esther, as well as improving the fitment on her exhaust system a bit further. With Esther jacked up, I undone the mount and the clamps on the front centre section of her exhaust. Here you can see that I'd already damaged her brand new flexy.
Sorry, Mr. Booth.
With the front centre section removed, I then put Esther back on the ground and set about removing her exhaust manifold. Before I could do that, I needed to move her strut brace out of the way, as well as her dipstick and her water rail. Then with the manifold nuts undone, I could pull the exhaust manifold out of the engine bay. I cut another little bit off the bottom of the manifold with the angle grinder, and then I cleaned up the cylinder head with some brake cleaner before sliding the new exhaust manifold gasket in place. Next, I trial fitted the exhaust manifold just with a couple of nuts at this stage before trial fitting the front centre section of the exhaust to see how much gap I had between it and the floor. It was about as tight as I was going to get it without it hitting the floor, so then I set about refitting everything properly in the engine bay. Alright, so Esther is almost back together. I've got the exhaust manifold gasket fitted, as you would have just seen, but I haven't yet refitted her exhaust system. So you would have seen in the clips that I did check that this was nice and tight to the floor, and there was less than a finger gap in between the pipe and the floor. Don't want it hitting the floor. Also checked that while it was up, these slots, the manifold went in far enough so that there's not, it's not going to blow here, and that's fine. The flexi is still going to be the lowest point. It still hangs down below the chassis, but I can't get it any tighter without modifying the floor. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, but I think it might have been better to put this flexi over here. But for now, I'm happy that I'm going to have the flexi tighter up to the floor, but I do want to try and protect it. So the other day, I bought this from Halfords, and this is supposed to be to repair a back box, which I don't think would ever work, but I'm hoping that I can use this as a bit of a shield so that if we do ever scrape on a speed bump, it's going to damage this and not damage the flexi further, because the flexi at the moment doesn't blow, it hasn't damaged it enough to cause a crack. So essentially this is just a piece of aluminium with a Jubilee clip on it. See, what's happening now is when I do it up, this is coming out of here. I've got an idea. I think I've sussed it, but it's going to have to be, just tight enough like it is now so it doesn't really move. It will move if I force it, but if I go any tighter, that will rip out. So let's get the exhaust back together. All right, so the exhaust system's back on, but unfortunately my little shield for the flexi didn't work. As soon as I tightened it up a bit, it failed again. So instead, I've made up this. That's just 2 sheets of the alley and 2 Jubilee clips holding it on. So that should survive a few scrapes if we do scrape. But yeah, the exhaust is definitely tucked up a bit closer to the floor now. I can't get it any closer now without it risking touching and banging. So yeah, hopefully it won't scrape as much now, but this will at least save the flexi. Although I do plan to, you know, get hold of some exhaust wrap and do something similar, but something a bit more tidy. I've just had an absolute nightmare with Esther. I cleared up, cleaned myself up a bit, went to drive down the road, and she's misfiring under load, big time. So I quickly went back to the garage, had a look at the plugs, and I pulled one plug out. It was all, you know, sooted up and stuff. So I thought, right, I'll bung a new set of plugs in, put a new set of plugs in as quick as I could, and then went down the road, same thing. So then I changed to a spare coil pack, went down the road, same thing. So I just had to swap cars, and now realistically I don't even have enough time to get to boxing. Absolute nightmare. I mean, I'm gonna have to go to boxing because I can't go tomorrow, so I'll just have to turn up late, but yeah, not good, not good. Well, as it turns out, my sat-nav on my phone is actually saying that I might make it to boxing on time. And it sent me on the M25, which is a route I wouldn't have taken. So, yeah, I might actually make it to boxing on time, which is good. One thing I didn't mention in the last clip, when I was changing the spark plugs on Esther, the 4th one definitely had oil all over it. So, I don't know whether that's anything to do with why she's not running right. One thing that might be causing it is that loose crank sensor. I sort of managed to do the screw up with my hand, even though I couldn't get in there with the Torx Allen key, which I thought would, you know, hold it still. But yeah, I did have my tuning laptop with me, but you know, once I'd tried the new set of spark plugs and tried the coil pack, I just had no time to start plugging it in and checking things. But I'm pretty sure that if the crank sensor doesn't send a signal to the ME221 ECU, then it won't start up in the first place. Admittedly, it really struggles to start. You have to crank it for ages. So yeah, that's all I've got to go on. Oil on number 4 spark plug, and the fact that the holder for the crank sensor is loose. All right, into a new day, and I've just made my way to Inky's Autos in West Drayton, and the West London Classic Ford crew are having a bit of a barbecue, and they've got a few cars on display. They are playing copyright music though, so I'll just cue up some royalty-free music and give you a look at the cars that are here. Alright, so it's been a few hours since the last clip. The barbecue was really cool. Eating some food, chatting to some petrol heads and checking out some cars. There's actually quite a few more cars here now. Everyone's firing up their engines. Didn't show you this Escort Cosworth earlier on, but we did see this at Ford Power Live recently. Then we've got Barry's Z-Tech Turbo Orion that we've seen loads of times, and Al's 100E and Sarah's Mark IV Cabriolet. These lot are all going to Chelsea Cruise tonight, so I'm going to join them in Maude. Always cool cruising with the West London lot. Already seen some burnouts. We've only been on the road a couple of minutes. Matthew's having some issues. This red Mark 1 has just joined the party. Loving the really wide RS rims. All right, well, we've been here for a little while and it's actually starting to get a bit dark now, so let me show you what cars have turned up tonight. A couple of very familiar Fiestas over here. We've seen these loads of times on the channel, both rocking MH decals. Actually saw these recently at the Ace Caf. Really cool old school Mini over here. I was actually chatting to the lady that owns this a minute ago. And next to that, really modern Dodge Challenger. This thing was making loads of racket when it turned up. Not sure what it is, some sort of American thing with a huge supercharged V8 in the bay. Got the two rear-wheel drive Mk1 Fiestas lined up next to each other. Over here we've got the red Mk1 Escort that joined us at the petrol station earlier with its really cool Pinto setup in the bay. Love that. Next to that, the ST170 powered Mk2 Cortina that came down here with us. Next to that, my old banger, moredoor. And next to that, the Z-Tech Turbo Orion that belongs to Barry. He calls this thing Sophie. And then next to that, Lawrence's Mk1. Really tidy 3-door Cosy over here. Just had a Mk2 Transit turn up. Check that out. Sitting on some sort of really cool rims, not sure what they're called. Do let us know in the comments if you know. Yeah, over here we've got the Escort Cosy that came down with us. Then you've got Al's 100E with its V6 lump in the bay. And next to that, some sort of buggy thing that we have seen before with its V8 lump in the bay. And then, yeah, some other buggy thing next to that. Yeah, apologies, I don't know what some of these things are called, but do let us know if you do in the comments. Check out the Dodge Charger. Love that. And right over in the corner, I can see a very familiar Moredoor Mk2 Escort. The Coogan's Moredoor gear, which is, of course, rocking MH decals. Got another Mk2 Cortina joining the party. We've seen this gold 1600E before. Absolutely immaculate. How you doing, mate? You all right? We have another Moredoor Mk2 Escort that's joined the party. Love that. Spoke to the owner of this thing before. He's a bit of a drifter. In fact, he's a lot of a drifter. And next to that, really cool Mk1 Cortina. That's actually not the only Mk1 Cortina that's shown up. Check this out with its really cool green and yellow colour scheme. All right. The West London lot are making a move, so I'm going to do the off as well. Hello, so it's been a good few days since the Chelsea cruise, and those of you that watch my on-track videos will know that I haven't been feeling 100% lately. I am feeling a million times better now though, and I want to apologise that this video has taken so long to edit and upload. Anyway, before I end this video, I wanted to go over to Esther's garage to see if I can figure out why she wasn't running properly the other day. So first things first, I've got the ME221 ECU hooked up to my laptop, and I've already got it connected with the Mighty software. And Mighty basically stands for the Motorsport Electronics Integrated Tuning Environment. And don't forget, if you're after an ECU, I'm actually a dealer for Motorsport Electronics ECUs. So drop me an email and I can advise you which ECU you need for your setup. Or just check out my website to see the ECUs that are available. I'm going to basically turn the engine over and I'm going to be looking at things like this. Now at the moment it says not synced. Now once the sensors all synchronise with each other, that will say full, and the engine won't start unless you do get sync. So if my issue is being caused by the fact that the holder for the crank sensor's loose, then, you know, while it's failing to start, that will still say not synced. If it says full and still struggles to start, then I know that it's not anything to do with that sensor. In fact, if I go up to diagnostics and have it on that page instead, I can then look at this counter here, which is the lost sync counter. And that will basically tell me, for instance, if we do get full sync, but then there's, you know, some lost pulses from any of the sensors, that counter will go up. So, yeah, I'll keep an eye on that as well. So, yeah, I'm basically going to be watching these two as I crank the engine. So let's turn her over and see what we get. Yeah, that seems to be working as it should. Now, to be fair, the engine was warmed up before I tried to drive it the other day, so maybe whatever issue I'm getting only happens when the engine's warm. But it looks like it's not the crank sensor. Just want to have a bit of a sanity check, so I'm going to go back to the start page, just look at everything else. The coolant temperature is saying 0.9 degrees, so that could be an issue, but the intake air temperature is saying 15 degrees, so that's probably normal. But yeah, I think that might be my issue, you know? Yeah, because it's definitely not -9 degrees out. So maybe there's a failure with the coolant temperature sensor or the wiring for it, and because the ECU thinks the engine's super cold, it's chucking in a load of extra fuel, and maybe that's why it was misfiring the other day. All right, so to be fair, the plug on the coolant temperature sensor wasn't pushed on properly, and I've had issues with this before. You know, it doesn't seem to lock onto it properly. There's not really enough space for the wiring for the sensor, so maybe that's my issue. See, it pulls off without releasing the little locking thing on it. So let's push that back on properly, and then I'll have a look at the laptop again and see if there's any difference. Right, so I've got the ignition on. Now I'm going to reconnect the ECU and we'll see if that coolant temperature sensor reading changes. There you go, 27 degrees now. So there's actually a good chance that that was the issue all along, because it revved up fine, you know, at idle. It was just when you put it under load. And basically, yeah, the ECU would have been chucking in a load of extra fuel, you know, thinking that it was -9 degrees. So yeah, I actually think that was the issue all along. I do plan to do some sort of modification to the bulkhead to give that sensor and wire a bit more space. But yeah, in the meantime, hopefully I can just sort of always make sure that that plug is plugged on properly, and we won't have any more issues, fingers crossed. But whilst my beautiful girlfriend Kat is here with me, I do want to do a compression test. All right, so I've got my beautiful girlfriend in the driver's seat. I've already disconnected the ME221 ECU, but I've left the fuel pump on, and I've removed all the spark plugs. Now, it's worth noting that there is actually a trace of oil in that area there in the cylinder head, so it probably means that the oil I found on number 4 spark plug was actually coming into there because the gasket, the rocker cover gasket, isn't sealing at the back, which is a common thing on these engines. But I thought I might as well just do a compression test anyway while Kat's here, and we can yeah, just double check that everything's good there. I'm going to hold this in each cylinder. Kat's going to turn the engine over whilst keeping her foot on the accelerator, and we'll see what readings we get. about 95, about 100, it's about 100, and that's about 90. All right, so they're not dead even, but they're close, and we've got compression on all 4 cylinders, so all is well. And I'm pretty confident that my issues the other day were just caused by the fact that the coolant temperature sensor weren't plugged in properly. Now, if I had plugged the laptop in instead of trying to change spark plugs and core packs, then I would have been able to realise that, and I probably would have been able to take Esther with me at the weekend rather than having to sort of rush around and take Maude instead. But you live and learn. So there you go. It looks like the issue with Esther was a really quick and easy fix, but I won't find out until I take her for a test drive. I've had a couple of little bits through the post which should enable me to do some jobs on Esther and Maude. So stay tuned to the channel for the video after next, because the next video is going to be my video that I filmed on a pair of really cool old school Fords that belong to a friend of mine. So that's it for this video, but before I go, I want to send a massive thanks out to the West London Classic Ford crew for inviting me to their barbecue. And yeah, it was really cool cruising with you guys up to the Chelsea cruise. I was actually supposed to be going out to send Maude at Aldershot Raceway again with the West London Classic Ford crew, but unfortunately that's been cancelled and it will be rescheduled for some time, hopefully in the near future. Don't forget, if any of you guys want to find out about regular car meets in and around London, or just keep up to date with what the West London Classic Ford crew are up to, definitely give them a follow on their Facebook page. I will of course leave a link to it in the description. So that's all I've got for this video. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new. Check out my website for merch and parts. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. Massive thanks to my patrons for your ongoing support. I'll leave all the links to everything in the description, along with my email address for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.